Hello, I'm Dr. Michael Strani, and welcome to the DCU School of Computing PhD Research Series, where each week we take one PhD student and ask them who they are, what is their research about, and why is the research important. And this week we have Henry Elder to talk to us about natural language generation for digital assistants.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Henry Elder. I'm a final year, fourth year, PhD student with the ADAPT Center. I'm doing natural language generation, so NLP. For my undergrad, I did maths and economics in Trinity College, Dublin. It's very different, much more focused on statistics and econometrics. Afterwards, I went abroad. I worked in New York, worked in San Francisco for a little bit, and then I came back to Ireland after the J1, and I did a master's in actuarial science. So I've kind of gone around the road a bit. So I did the master's in actuarial science, and then I did a few more exams towards the actuarial qualification working for the Central Bank of Ireland. That was like about a year and a half. And then while I was there, it's like 2015, the whole deep learning thing started kicking off, and I saw some really cool articles. So this got me super interested, and I did a online course. So I did, like, at the time, the Stanford courses were some of the only online courses. So there was one on image recognition, and then eventually there was one on natural language processing from Richard Soger, and I did both of those. And my friend was like, just do a PhD. So I was like, all right, cool. So I started emailing some people, started talking to people. I emailed John Kelleher. He emailed me his PhD requirement thing. But I didn't like the PhD thing as much, but I saw that in the URL, there was the ADAPT Center / PhD listing. So I just went straight to that. And I found another one, which is for natural language generation from Alex O'Connor. So I rang up the ADAPT Center, said, who's this Alex O'Connor guy? Can I talk to him? I called up Alex O'Connor. We had a good 10, 20-minute chat. And then I did an interview, and I accepted it. So now Alex has left the ADAPT Center, and Jennifer is my supervisor now. So I'm working with Jennifer Foster now, is my new supervisor. And what I work on is digital assistant language generation. So with Google Assistant, Siri, Amazon Alexa, they have to generate the responses to any of the questions you ask. And the way they currently do it is using a template. And a template is kind of where you would pre-write a sentence and you would leave gaps in it and you'd fill them in with a bit of information. So let's say it's a weather forecast. You'd say, the weather in blank in Dublin is going to be 15 degrees today. And the problem with templates is that they tend to be not very varied. And if, because you've written them once, and if you want to make them varied, so if you want to say like chain a bunch of templates together or have like a very wide variety of things, it's very hard to keep track of this. These rule-based systems, they kind of grow exponentially. So the solution to that is to use deep learning and neural networks to generate the text. So my main focus is when I'm given some information, so we know what information we want to communicate, I take that and generate a sentence containing those pieces of information. So you'd say Dublin, 15 degrees today, and my neural network language model would learn to generate a proper response to that. And this is a subtask of natural language generation called surface realization. And I've participated in like a number of surface realization chair tasks like WebNLG and the E2E and all these different ones. And done quite well in those, and also had a paper in the neural language generation workshop in Nashville last year, where I won a best paper for a new kind of model that I came up with. So I'm very much focused on splitting apart, making things more sequential. Cool. So in order to use natural language generation with one of these digital assistants, it needs to be really reliable. So templates are 100% reliable. You put in the stuff, you put in the words, the information, it's going to come out correctly. The only fault you'd ever get is maybe there's some incongruity that makes it sound a little bit awkward. With the neural networks, on the other hand, they're a statistical generator. So there's no real guarantees. It sort of generates one word at a time based on sort of like the probability that one word will follow another, roughly speaking. So what this means is that you end up with weird things like hallucination. So it might generate a piece of information that you didn't want it to generate. So you might say Dublin, and because it's seen New York so many times in the data set, it will just say the weather in New York is going to be 15 degrees today. And you don't want that. Like that's like not reliable. So this research that I'm doing is important because in order to use neural networks in production, they need to be 100% reliable and to have these guarantees. And that's sort of where I'm going with my research, is trying to find a way to alter the inputs to the model. So what you actually give it, what you provide it. So maybe you provide it with a more full phrase, you provide it with the entire sentence or entire phrase, and then you can use that to help constrain the outputs. So it becomes more about stringing together these sub-phrases than it is about generating a full sentence from nothing, which is what the way things are currently done. And that's how I hope to help make these things more important or more reliable so they actually get used in production.